Hey everybody, welcome to Here's the Thing. I am your host, Keisha, and I have with me tonight from We the People Unite, Miss Maureen Marfell. Welcome, Maureen.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. And thank you, Keisha, for inviting me.
Thank you for joining. I'm happy to have you. So let's get into it. Tonight we are talking about jobs and the work world. It is a mess. So let's start with our headline, which is layoffs in October hit the highest level for a month in 22 years as companies cite cost cutting and AI. So I have a video to show us.
Keisha,
Yeah.
I can't hear it.
But look at that, Tech 141. That could be where you see a lot of the AI.
All right, let's try again.
Cuts, what's going on?
Yeah, well, this is like a clue from like a cough or a sneeze or whatever. But announced corporate job cuts, Andrew, in the U.S. surging past 1 million so far this year, with 153,000 new layoffs announced just in October, according to Challenger. That is the worst October since 2003. Here are the numbers. October up 153. That compares with September. That's 100,000 more than September and 100,000 more than this time last year in October 2024. Andy Challenger commenting, some industries are correcting after the hiring boom of the pandemic, but this comes as AI adoption, softening consumer and corporate spending, and rising costs drive belt tightening and hiring freezes. Announced layoffs don't always lead to actual cuts and could take place from attrition, but the report puts in perspective what we've been reporting here day after day, week after week. Series of marquee announcements unveiled in recent weeks across U.S. industries, including UPS, Amazon, Target, among others, Paramount, Rivian, all these companies there. Government has been responsible year to date for 308,000. But look at that, Tech 141. That could be where you see a lot of the AI, maybe some in warehousing, but a big chunk of that's going to be UPS, as well as potentially some hit from reduced flows of trade. Retail is up there, as is services at 64,000. You take out the Doge cuts, the number's a bit better at 800,000, but still well above last year. Challenger doesn't see much in the way of hiring, saying announced plans are 35% below last year, and they're skeptical about the number of new hires for the holiday season.
Is about the health of the job market.
So almost close to 1 million people have been laid off this year. And Trump says that, what did he say today or yesterday in that interview? He said, we have the greatest economy we've ever had. If this is the greatest economy we've ever had, what is a bad economy? 1 million people laid off, and it's not even the end of the year, it's October. I read that we haven't seen job cuts this bad since the recession in 2008. That's scary.
And if I could say, with that recession in 2008, Obama got us out of it. And I haven't seen Trump do that yet, but
it feels like Trump is getting us into it.
More. Yeah. I would.
Have you ever been laid off before?
Yes, I have, actually, with a company I loved. And it took us by surprise. It was in the late 80s, and it was when they called the where companies were being taken over, unfriendly takeovers. And I won't mention any names, but we were taken over by this company. I heard about it on the radio as I was getting ready for work in the morning. And they tried to say, they came out and talked to us that, oh, no, don't worry, we're not going to lay off anyone. Well, they did. They laid off over 200 people in the corporate offices. They kept employees. It was a food service company, a restaurant company. And they kept people in the restaurants and the food service. But anyway, yes, I was laid off. I got lucky and went over to an organization that took over the restaurants. And I knew, though, it was just a matter of time. I survived for 3 years there. And, but yes, I have been laid off. A company you love and where you thought really you're going to be there forever, because that was the company that helped me get into management. I had some great mentors there, and they were good at what they did with the severance packages. But a person that I was good friends with, she didn't get that same severance package, and I did because I was in management. But at the time, I pushed for her to get it also, because she, it didn't make any sense to me that all the employees should not get a severance package and be grandfathered. I just share that because, takeovers are very nasty, and it was very bad back then. It was happening to a lot of different companies, and it just happened immediately. And that's when people got their golden, what do we call it? They bring in CEOs to help the company out. Well, the CEOs were only trying to make more millions of dollars for themselves, and then they would leave you behind and go off to another company.
Is it golden parachute?
Golden parachute, thank you. I couldn't remember. And there was a lot of that going on in the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah. So I have, yes.
My company had 2 layoffs this year, and the first was in January, just after we came back from the holiday break. I've been fortunate that I was not part of either, but, and it's supposedly, I mean, I can't get into the details because I would like to keep my job, but supposedly it's not that the company isn't doing well, it's that they want to pivot and like kind of restructure the business, and it's about protecting the company for a future. But I've also been laid off 4 times. So each time this happens, whether I'm impacted or not by losing my job, it's still traumatizing. And I feel for all the people who were let go, because you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you. And I've been in that situation where you are a good employee, you get like great reviews, you're getting promoted, and still that doesn't really protect you from losing your job. At any given moment, they can decide that you're no longer needed.
That's true. I think I had shared with you that had also, I wasn't laid off, but not a couple of years ago, I came back to work and one day the boss came in and said, Maureen, I need to talk to you. And I said, why? What's going on? And he said, well, we're going to have to lay you off. And just like you, Keisha, I had great reviews, was doing my job, good feedback from the organizations I was helping out. And come to find out, they decided they wanted to restructure in a different way and felt I was redundant. I have my suspicions. I'm at that age where I thought, okay, found a way to get rid of this lady. But I went away from that because that's not healthy. And at that point, I was ready to leave because I said to this man, and he says, Maureen, we really love you. Now, how do you feel for the boss to say that to you and lay you off in the same sentence? And I said, and this is the way I am. I said, no, you don't. And don't ever say you love me again, because I don't love you. and I will get my things and I'll be out of here immediately. I didn't waste my time. I worked out a severance package with them. I don't think you have those advantages though in this work environment right now. It just seems like it's an immediate thing and you don't even get anything from it as you leave. I could be wrong about that. But also there's the challenge of finding another job right now because there's not a lot of jobs out there. I know my nephews suffer from that. And they have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to keep, their family, food on the table and a way of life for their children. So I don't remember that, okay? From, even though you might have lost your jobs, it seemed like there was always something else out there. Something you always said to yourself something better. And quite honestly, that did happen back then. I'd go back then, but that was my experience. But it never feels good now because you develop friendships, relationships, good bosses, a good company, and then someone pulls the rug out because they want it to. They want your company, and they don't want the company and want to reevaluate and restructure and really don't. High tech is really bad that way. Won't mention names, but my husband was in high tech and so is my brother. And the problem with high tech, you got a great job for a while and then they decide to restructure everything. And then people are moving around. Then you jump on to another company. Now, then you could jump on to another techie company. But the men who ran those companies, and I will say men then, they weren't nice. They weren't nice at all. And they still exist. And they are those billionaires that are friends to you, to the president right now. And they are not nice guys. I knew them personally. And I think it's a sad situation.
Well, I want to share a video of a woman talking about her life after layoff.
I'm 32, single, a homeowner, and I got laid off from my 6-figure tech job around 6 months ago. You might remember my reaction when I found out the news. But since then, I have been applying for countless jobs. I've had plenty of interviews, but still no job offers. I went on unemployment to make ends meet, but those benefits have since run out. And I'm now living off of my savings and any money I make off of my YouTube channel. Emotionally, there are some days where I'm hyper-focused on my situation and it causes a lot of anxiety. And other days, I'm able to not think about it as much and I feel okay. Life has been a complete roller coaster for this entire year so far. But I'm hoping that it calms down during the second half of the year. I am 32.
So that's a lot of what we just talked about.
Yeah, that's.
But I like that she mentioned she's doing things with her time and she has a YouTube channel and that's at least one avenue that she's looking toward to help make income while she looks for a job. And I've seen that a lot with people, if not entirely pivoting to a new role, trying to take circumstances in their own hands and use it as a way to launch themselves to do something else. So I applaud her for that, but it's rough. It can take like a year to find another job.
Definitely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I know from going from that job that I told you back when with the restaurants. Now, I had my husband's income. He was working there then. I had a severance package. But, as you saw severance running out, yes, it takes a while before you connect yourself with another job that you find worthwhile also. Because, I think there's something inherent in all of us that we just don't want to go for just anything. We want to use our talents and our experiences and want to be with something that looks interesting for us. And I can imagine that that's not easy to do right now.
Yeah, I know. I have coworkers who were laid off from the 2 layoffs that my company had this year who are friends. And I have people who are in my personal life who have been laid off and are having a hard time. Um, and it's, it's, you want to be supportive in the right way and not like say a bunch of stupid platitudes to them, like, it's all going to be okay.
Right.
There's a light under the tunnel. And when God closes one door, he opens a window. Like, people don't want to hear all that. Even if
No,
it's true, like, they don't want to hear that. They want to know that they're going to be able to pay their rent and that they're going to be able to feed themselves. When you mentioned getting laid off and thinking that it might be because of age, and I'll be 50 in a few years, and I hear people who are in that age range start talking about they're worried about being discriminated against when they're looking for work. And I worry about that, because it's scary to think that just because you hit a certain age that some people might think that your skills are no longer useful or that you have an old way of thinking. And I have a lot of life left to live. And
me too. And mine, I was in my 70, and I still felt like I was integral to my job and was doing a good job. And but yet I knew that I was getting ready to leave. But yes, when you're in your 50s, like my sister is, yeah, you're not ready. You're vital. You have many years. I hope that doesn't happen to you, Keisha. But it is a scary experience, because I'm going to say it right here. There's discrimination for anyone, strangely enough, that may be over the age of 50. I know that the techie environment's really bad with that, and it's ridiculous. But they also want to bring in people they feel they don't have to pay more, but have the skills that they want also. I really don't respect a lot of companies that I know of in this environment that I live in. I was never with tech. I never wanted to be. And I'm glad I never went that direction. But I saw what it did to my husband, and he was obviously very good at what he did and kept going. But when he was 65, he was with a company that had a major layoff, and he was part of it. And it was incredibly hard. It was easy for him for years to go find similar jobs. And all of a sudden, they weren't there. But I hope, as we hope with everything, that these things start changing. I wish we could get back to those good employers, like I say I had with the food service company originally, the original entrepreneurs. Tech even had that. The Hewlett and Packards were one of the first high-tech companies in the Bay Area, but he loved his employees. He always made sure they were taken care of. He kept them for years and even would find other jobs for them and was pro. That's the way those pioneers were back then. And we don't seem to have that heart and soul anymore in many of our companies. That I think is important. I'm sort of going on and on here, but it is an interesting conversation we're having. And I hope that obviously never happens to you. First of all, you're lucky you don't look 50. So lie about your age. No, I'm sorry.
that's kind of what I'm banking on, is that I can continue to cosplay as much younger than I am. And I think I also have a younger spirit, so
Yeah, you do.
that helps. But still, you never know. And Kim and I talked last week about jobs and companies, and how it seems so obvious if you treat people well, they're happier and they're going to work hard and they're going to want to like be great employees, and the business will do well as a result. But it seems like some companies just don't really give a shit, quite frankly.
Right.
And the thing about layoffs is that the people who are left after the layoffs have their own issues to deal with. And I want to show a video that touches on that.
Layoffs. People are literally getting laid off left from right these days. But you know what people never talk about when it comes to a layoff? The people who get to stay, you know, the ones that didn't get laid off. And I'm bringing this up because mass layoffs traumatize the people who stay too. And no one ever talks about it because the people who get to stay are referred to as lucky or fortunate or blessed to have a job. But behind the scenes, something else is happening too. The team is grieving. Productivity drops, trust disappears, and fear completely takes over the workplace. That's when people start wondering and thinking, am I next? Should I be looking for a new job? Is this place even stable anymore? And then on top of all of that, they're expected to stay positive, to take on extra work, to make the transition smooth, and especially to stay quiet about their negative opinions on the situation. But the survivors of the layoffs, the ones that got to stay, the ones that kept their positions, they're not okay. They're burned out, they're anxious, they're scared, and they're tired of all of it. And what happens after a few months is that a lot of the people that got to stay end up leaving on their own because they're scared for the next layoff. And none of this means that they're ungrateful because, yes, they got to stay. But that doesn't mean they're happy because they know that at any moment it could happen to them in the same way that it happened to their coworkers. Overall, layoffs are harming everybody involved. Layoffs, layoffs, layoffs.
I mean, it's not easy for anyone involved.
No, it's not. The trust goes away in that scenario. I have seen that when they were dissolving that first company I told you about, the restaurant company, because we weren't owned by the same owners anymore or the same people who kept that company alive. That's a little bit of a different scenario. But the point being is, yeah, you lose it. You don't feel that anymore of what, you know, losing your coworkers and some of your bosses also go away, and you don't have as good ones left as far as you're concerned. And you don't trust. You're going to say, when is this going to happen to me? And Jesse has something here. This is why people go postal. Mental health of everyone under stress is never taken seriously, especially by jobs.
Yeah, I mean, that anxiety is real.
Yeah.
Like, if layoffs happen once and then twice, the number of people that I know of at my current company who are just worried about when the next round of layoffs is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because in January, after the layoffs happened, we were told this probably won't happen again. We can't guarantee it won't happen again. And then it happened again like 9 months later.
Oh.
So it's understandable that people are going to be anxious about their job security, because what is job security when you can just come to work one day and be called into a meeting with HR and be told that your job is no longer your job?
I just saw what Andrea said. She said, wait for the severance package. Yeah, kind of helps for a little while. But
it does help for a little while.
Quickly.
It depends on what kind of severance package you get, though, because I've been at a job where I was there for about a year, and they would give severance, like 2 weeks severance for every year that you were employed.
That sounds
So
nice.
I left with basically like nothing. And the first time I got laid off from that job, I was like 23, 24, and that rocks your world, because it's like, holy crap, I can just be told that my job is gone, and then they just give me 2 weeks and say bye, good luck. And at the time, the health insurance was ridiculous because it was Cobra, and I still think there is Cobra, but Cobra is so expensive.
No,
It's absurdly.
Yeah, no, Cobra's very expensive. It's not, yeah. if you get really lucky, you'll get an employer who'll pick up, but I'm sure that doesn't occur. I'm saying, I was very lucky from that, from both companies in relation. Well, especially my first company that I was at for many years, the restaurant company, I did get a good severance package. I had been there for 10 years, but irregardless, they picked up on the insurance too for quite a while. But I know that it doesn't exist now for you and the younger generations. And I'm thinking, what's going wrong here? How do you keep loyal employees, good employees, if they work under this feeling as to how long am I going to be here? How can I trust this company? And let me see, Andrea, what is she saying here? Now robots are replacing people. Yeah, and AI, we can talk about that a little bit later, but Keisha, I have something from SHRM, Society Human Resources Manager, that is related to AI. And I think we had talked about that. I can't remember recently. Do you remember that, Keisha, where they discussed AI and how you had to be really careful filling out applications and what have you?
Oh yeah, because AI was discriminating. There's a lawsuit against Workday
Workday.
because it's the system has been discriminating against applicants.
So I'll get, I'm sure you have other things to talk about, but I will talk about something that SHRM has says, which is, I like seeing, Society Human Resources. I'm an HR person, and HR people can't be on the positive side. That's the type of HR person I wanted to be and got to be. And working with nonprofits, you have to be gentler, and I wanted to be, and it was perfect for me. And there are some HR people that are okay out there, even though I'm sure a lot of you don't believe it. But I'll stop talking right now and go on to Keisha, but I will bring up something that I thought was interesting with SHRM.
Okay. To close out the layoff topic, I just wanted to show one video that gets into a different kind of layoff.
I am likely going to get in some trouble for this, but I'm going to go ahead and say this anyway. I caught a clip today from one of my favorite podcasts. I'll link them in the comments. They were chatting with a gentleman named John Lee, and he dropped a bomb. He called the return to office push a quiet layoff. Are you effing kidding me? That hit so hard. Think about it. Think about it for a second. During COVID, many companies massively overhired. Now, instead of cutting loose the talent, they're quietly pressuring people back into offices under the guise of restoring culture. Here's the real kicker. 73% of companies will require employees to be back in the office 3 or more days a week by the end of 2025. That's nearly 3/4 of businesses turning attendance into a subtle form of downsizing with no official layoffs. Meanwhile, employees are reminded that remote, which, by the way, consistently drives up retention and productivity, is on its way out. Companies are reclaiming control of bodies, not necessarily delivering value. It's a strategic squeeze, not a refocus. This isn't about boosting performance. It's about trimming staff without triggering an HR mess. And if you're hearing more chatter about, we're an in-office culture, then talking about your compensation, that, my friend, could be your warning. So if your company insists you're back 5 days a week, or they're dangling incentives for FaceTime, pause and ask, is this a culture reboot or a quiet exit strategy? So if you see through the haze, drop.
So I work for a company where after the pandemic, where we all worked from home, I was allowed to work from the office or work from home 4 days a week and went into the office 1 day a week. And then earlier this year, they said that we all have to come back 3 days a week. And that was a big life change, honestly, to go from working from home 4 days a week for 3-4 years to back in the office 3 days a week. I'm still not happy about it, honestly. And I know that like I'm in some ways privileged to be able to even have the ability to work from home, to have the kind of job where I can do that. But it is a lifestyle change.
Mhm.
Like I had to find like how to take care of my dog, because on the day that I would go into the office, I would send him to doggy daycare. But I can't afford to send him to doggy daycare 3 days a week. That's expensive. And so I had to like scramble to figure out how I was going to take care of him, and finally was able to find a dog walker. But there's also things like now I'm commuting again. That's time out of my day that I didn't have to spend going to and from work. And there's just little things like having to figure out what to do for lunch, and I'm ending up spending money so that I can buy lunch at work. And it's just ridiculous. My productivity has gone down. It's hard to focus in the office. People after the pandemic seem to have lost any sense of like common courtesy. There was a woman who had, your computer makes all kinds of noises when you get notifications for things, and she had her bing, 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 bing. And I was like, would you mind terribly if you could just mute your Slack notifications, because it was driving me insane. And she said, I'll think about it, Keisha. How hard is it just to mute your notifications? Like, I don't understand why you need to have all these sounds going off when you have all these people around you. And so there's just things like that where I'm like, how am I expected to work in this environment where when I'm at home, I actually worked more because I didn't have to commute. So I could just get dressed, sit in front of my desk, start work. But that time that I now spend getting ready is time that I'm not at the office. I'm not working. So to her point about productivity has gone up when people work from home, people are happier, they stay at jobs longer when they can work from home. I totally get all that.
Yeah.
I know many people are so unhappy that they have to be back in the office because they just don't get as much work done, and it has affected their lives in a negative way. All the people who have children that had to find childcare for their children, or figure out like who's going to pick my kid up from school. I can't do that anymore. Who's going to take my kid to school? I can't do that anymore. It's just a lot. And I wonder, like, is my company like a Yahoo where they were just hoping that people were going to quit on their own? I don't know.
No, I agree. I knew that happened before I left. They were going to start having us come. Well, they did pretty quick after COVID. And I questioned it. I knew there was 2 days I definitely would have to be there, and I would, but I didn't understand why the other 3 days that was necessary, because I was very productive and actually, just like you said, got more done. I wasn't commuting, but on a level that's been really hard is for my sister. She works in the education system. And now she's afraid that they're almost going to change it back to going in 5 days a week. And she's now working from home. I think it's 2 days a week, 2 days a week. But just like you, she feels like she's more productive, and she has her dog. And, she can't afford to do that either. And I don't understand companies on it, because, you do get more productive employees who can work at home. Sure, there's jobs you can't do that. And they say, well, it's not equitable because those people have to be here. Okay, fine. They know they have to be there because of the nature of their job. Why can't it simply be communicated that way? That's not, yeah, I agree. That I don't see the necessity of that. However, no one's going to listen to me at this point.
I just, at some point, the tides are going to turn and it will be an employee market again. And I think that companies will have to adjust and give in to the fact that remote work is here to stay.
Mhm.
They can fight it all they want to, but I think that the remote work is going to win out over in office. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be in office at all. I do see that there is value in being in the office sometimes. I don't think it needs to be 3 days a week. It definitely doesn't need to be 5 days a week. The companies that are doing that, that's just absurd.
Mhm.
Especially when the company was doing just fine during the pandemic when everyone was working from home 5 days a week, and suddenly now everyone needs to be in the office. Make it make sense. Anyway, to close out this segment on layoffs, I just want to say if you have been laid off, there are lots of resources on the web and social media for what to do and how to survive and thrive. And as someone who's been laid off 4 times, 2 things that serve me well is, one, just take advantage of your free time to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to do if you had to work 40 hours a week. Of course, you don't want to spend money that you don't have. There are lots of things that you can do for free, but you'll never get this time back. And the other thing is have a schedule. It is so important to have a schedule because it keeps you from being kind of like alone, like just adrift. And having a routine so that you feel like you're living your life deliberately is very important. So I wish anyone who's been laid off the best of luck and the strength that you need to get through this. But now let's talk about how things got this way, because as we mentioned, job security and loyalty seem to be a thing of the past. So let's talk about that past. I got a little video to watch for us to watch.
Okay.
The Industrial Revolution. That's when things started changing. As factories became bigger, you needed people who would come and manage the bureaucracy around the factory. So in some ways, the concept of people moving to office work was an extension of the factory. Just like you had foremen in the factory, you had supervisors who had to get things done, and employees were instruments for executing things. Coming out of the war, many people were chasing the American dream. That was a remarkable era of growth.
Workers that grew up in the Great Depression, what they wanted was a sense of economic stability. So there was this unspoken social contract. If you came and you were loyal to the company will take care of you.
Post-World War II was a transformative time within the workplace, as employers sought ways to drive creativity and innovation by creating a more welcoming work environment.
We saw Herman Miller create what is known as the Action Office. It was about creating an individual workspace for people that really was supportive of them and enabled their own best individual creative work. You have your own individual little space, you go in there and you do your work.
His idea was flexible spaces. It was designed to capture how do workers work and what are the partitionings that are needed. But what ended up happening was it became a one-size-fit-all cubicle, which was not the original intent.
Computers of the future are being developed as computers relieve people of many tedious routine jobs.
As the evolution of the PC happened more toward the 80s, we were now in the age of what can you invent? What can you create?
That's also the time when you started using the word talent more for describing your people.
As the markets continued to grow, employees began to sense a shift in company loyalty. People began to put their own needs and interests first, and thus the war for talent began.
The technology companies of the early 2000s were in a huge war for talent, and they were all about driving this new, different type of experience. It was really about how do we create an environment that is engaging and will bring people here and it wouldn't be bad if it kept them here a few extra hours a day. Mobile technology has had an amazing impact on the way work is done. The entire knowledge of the world is available in your pocket on a phone.
We no longer had to only be in the office. That technology enabled the rise.
Any of that sound familiar, Maureen?
Yeah. I don't know. I must have been in a unique world. I never had to work in one of those cubicles. I think it was just the company that I worked for. I mean, they had ample space for everybody and for every employee to have their individual space. That must have been one of the most innovative companies. It's too bad it was taken over in a bad way. But yeah, I always had my own space. But I know tech did not. I really, high tech would just have these people in these small little cubicles, and some of them were so messy. I remember visiting my husband once, who was very neat, but he was showing me how some of the employees worked, and they had stacks of paper all over. Can you imagine the small cubicle and paper all over the place, and cups thrown here and there, but. Yeah, I think it's good to let people work from home with how our technology is. Yes, certainly you have to go in if you're someone who had to be there for meetings. And of course, there's group meetings too, and being with your coworkers. But I really don't think people should have to go in 5 days a week. So I think we've evolved where that shouldn't happen. And it just said that in that video you were showing. You've got your laptop, you've got your phone, you have your space elsewhere. And I think that helps out mentally and physically for anyone. That's my opinion, but.
There was part of the video where they talk about how talent became a thing, companies looking for talent. And I graduated college with a business degree that was technical. And it was around the time when all those .coms were starting to form, and they were giving people all these perks, and they had all these like ridiculous setups in the office. But I graduated as they were kind of on the downturn because they were spending so much money on these perks for people. And so that was actually one of the second companies that I got laid off from, was a .com that no longer exists.
Right.
But it was
pretty for the Bay Area, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was in the Bay. It was in the Bay Area.
Yes.
And the office was so pretty. It was so sleekly designed and bright colors and all of that stuff. But yeah, they had to lay off a bunch of employees, and I was one of them because I was a new college grad with an unimportant job. So that sucks.
Well, some of those tech companies, not tech, the social media, yeah, people are making really big bucks too as they came on board. And gosh, I know it's still like that. Apple's offices are amazing. But I do feel like things are kind of quieting down in that concept. Who else was like that? Facebook. Yeah, Google. We have all those guys around us here. And I just would always shake my head as I'm driving to work, watching them build the new Apple offices. And I thought, oh my God, what a lot of wasted money. I know what they're going to do 6 months from now. They're probably going to lay a bunch of people off and they'll have too much space. And then, of course, when the COVID came, people weren't in those offices. But I just think it's so poorly thought of, and I blame the greed of these, this is just me, but I do believe it's true, of these high tech CEOs.
They make a ton of money.
They do, and they really are not connected with most of the people that work for them. Yeah. And I don't think it used to be quite as bad, or I was just lucky, the companies I was working for. But then, like I said, then you start having the takeovers, right? And you lost that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned earlier was with layoffs, it changes your loyalty to a company. It changes how you feel about loyalty to a company. So there's a video I want to play that touches on that.
Don't keep employees around out of loyalty. They keep them as long as they serve a purpose. That's why employees who once felt indispensable can be let go without a second thought. It's not about how much you've given to a company. It's about how much the company still needs you. And when that changes, you're on your own. Companies often say employees are like family, but the harsh reality is that most businesses will replace you without hesitation. If something were to happen to you, they wouldn't shut down in mourning. They'd have your job posted online before your funeral arrangements were even finalized. It sounds cold, but it's the truth. People pour years into a company, sacrificing time and their real families, missing important moments and putting their health on the back burner, thinking their dedication means something. But as soon as they're gone, whether by choice, layoffs, or tragedy, the company moves on without skipping a beat. A new hire steps in, emails continue, and meetings go on as if nothing ever happened. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a reminder that job security is never about how much you care about a company. It's about how much they still need you in that moment. And when you're gone, life at the company keeps moving.
That's true.
It is very true. It sounds kind of harsh, but I mean that's the reality. Like I've heard of people say like someone died at their company and they had the job description for that person up the next day. And I believe it.
I believe it too, unfortunately. Yeah, I do. Huh.
And like I said, I've been laid off 4 times, and one of the things that taught me is to never get attached to any particular company. Like it is a business transaction, honestly.
Right.
I go in, I work hard because I have integrity, because I want to feel good about myself and the work that I do. But I am under no illusion that the company cares about me or has my best interest at heart. They're going to do what's best for the business.
Well, take it from me, from my last experience. That is true. That's true. Now, I wasn't, probably I was one of those people just kept on going, but, and some people may have retired before I did, but that's not the point. As long as I could still do what I was doing and do it good. But there was no loyalty from the other end, and really no good explanation either. And like I say, I let that go. I get on with my life. And you're right, Keisha, and anyone who's out there, you want to do your good job, but I have to say, you got to be your own person too, because you really can't count on most of these companies anymore to have that loyalty. I do think it existed some years ago, but it's gone as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't exist anymore. Hopefully it comes back, right? Keisha, you and I were talking about the word hope.
Yes.
I'm sure there's still some companies that are like that, but I don't know who they are. I know I'm in an area where I'm sorry, I'm sick of the high-tech companies around me. They did not fulfill their promise as they did when they first came in. And because there was a point in time, that the original owners did. And I just lost Keisha. Keisha.
I'm here.
You
not see me?
I can see you now. I don't know what happened. You sort of went away for a little while, but yeah.
Oh, weird. Okay.
No, it's fine. That's tech for you. But yeah, I hate to say that, but it's true. They did not fulfill their promise, tech. I remember how we used to talk way back when, and boy, they got some nasty CEOs put in place. I'm not mentioning names, right? But I'm sorry.
I wish you would.
Well, think of some of Trump's friends. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
Well, since job security and job loyalty seem to be a thing of the past, there are some people of the younger generation that are reimagining what the work world should look like. So let me cue up this video.
Lazy girl job because I was lazy. I got a lazy girl job because I was too ambitious. I know that sounds pompous, so let's go over it. So my lazy girl job was actually a really good job. I think the media has completely taken over my lazy girl job trend and made it seem like it's only jobs where you don't have much going for you, it's bad pay, whatever. Which again, that's still an opportunity for people. But I just want to give some nuance to like lazy girl jobs as a whole. My job before my lazy girl job was my first big girl job that I got out of college. I got a tech degree. It was in the tech industry. And I was a huge corporate pick-me. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder as fast as I could. I got all these promotions very quickly. I was there to do anything. And what I learned from 2 years of being there was the first year I didn't get a raise. No one did because of just the economic factors that was happening in 2020. So then I waited the second year for my raise. And yes, it was a 10% raise. But if you looked over 2 years, it was only 5% per year. It wasn't really that great. And the amount of time and responsibilities and things like that that I was taking on, I wasn't getting the reward quick enough in my head. So I was super, super impatient. I felt like in order to succeed in corporate America, it's a lot of games, it's a lot of earning your stripes for a very long time until you get rewarded. I want to create something so big that I don't have to remind anyone of my value anymore. I just want it to be an indisputable fact that I'm worth something and I want opportunities to come to me. I don't want to sit here and have to remind people for 15 years what I'm doing, do all this grunt work and be like, and that's why I'm important now. I just wanted it now. Now at this point, I was like 23, 24 years old. So I got a lazy girl job so I could make room for what I do today, which is obviously this account and all of the thought leadership that I do and the writing that I do and the business behind it. At this point, it was only taking me about like 10 hours to do a week. It was like, again, an easier job for me. It was still a good job. And then after the 10 hours that, I would do at my job, I would work on this. I didn't have enough money yet and enough momentum to do it full time yet. I knew I wanted to do this full time. I knew going into my lazy girl job, I was only going to be there like 2 years max. So the lazy girl job gave me my time back and it didn't use as much of my brain. So I was able to pour that into this for a living and really grow this. So I was still excelling and developing my career, but it wasn't in the traditional corporate America space. And everything that I do today, like talking to journalists all day, and running my own content strategy, writing the book, hiring people for certain things. Like I couldn't do that at that age in corporate America. There's no job that fits all of these things. I could probably do some of it, but I would get hired into these different things. I would be put into a box and I wouldn't actually get paid the amount that I get paid doing it on my own. So that's why I had my lazy girl job, was to just create the runway to be able to do this full time. You can have a lazy girl job for whatever reason you want. Just make sure you have a game plan with it. Because if you're not going to play the corporate game, you better have a game plan behind it. And it better be for something. I think a lot of people work and they don't know why. They don't know what they're doing and they don't know why they're working, what their real goal is. But we have these like practice little like, I'm doing this for this, that we say to our boss once a year at our annual review. But it's like, where do you specifically want to take these things? Where do you want to go with it? And so I've never done something in my career without a strategy or an intention behind it for myself, purely. And that's where this new wave of Gen Z and Gen A is coming in. We're getting very good at that. And we're going, okay, well, how does this work for me? And corporations don't know how to handle it. They don't. And because they can't move as fast. There's no way that every responsibility and new thing that I've taken on and that I've taught myself how to do on my own as the anti-work girl boss, corporations can't move that fast. And even if they do, their promotions don't move that fast. The raises don't move that fast. Everything is urgent, right? Except your promotions and your raises. So I was like, if I want to take on this amount of responsibility and make this much impact at such a young age, I'm 28 years old now, my goodness, I better learn how to do it by myself, because I was starting to feel really bitter. And I was like, this isn't going to work out in corporate America. I keep getting bitter and no one wants to deal with that all day. So I have to find out a different strategy of how to work. And so that's what I really mean by like anti-work. It's just like anti this whole like following the games, the social norms, the politics, stupid ladders that are created in your job. And it's just focusing on like, what are you good at? And how can you double down on that? And like, yes, maybe the job will stay with you, maybe it won't, but like staying more in your lane of what you're good at and always making sure that you know that everything's a transaction.
I love that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's true. We never thought about looking at it that way. But that's interesting. Yeah, and creative. And I get it because you learn about yourself and what you feel your strengths are. And it's a brave thing to do from my point of view. But if you got the talent, have that job behind you, what you say, the lazy girl job, and take your talents that you have, and then you're basically setting up your own business or a consultation. If I had stayed on in HR, I think that would have been interesting. And I kind of did my own consultation because you can make HR what you think it should be. I did not do my office HR. I had somebody we set up to do that, but I was glad to get out of the office situation of HR. I love talking to individuals. And so I did kind of make something for myself, say, I don't want the internal HR, but I'm going to create this program for you, for our organization with just nonprofits. I'm going on and on here, but I kind of see that. I mean, yourself, if you're like, to say, hey, this is really what I want to do, but how am I going to do it? Because I did survive for 30 years there. So I can't say it wasn't fruitful and that I didn't enjoy most of it, which I did. I miss them. I miss my nonprofits. Great people to work for.
It's good. It's good to have that feeling.
Yeah, it is. It's very good.
When I was watching this video, at first I was like, I think my immediate reaction was at the beginning when she was talking about how she wanted to be promoted and how she did all this work and wasn't getting promoted fast enough. I was thinking about when I was a director and I had a Gen Z direct report who was very ambitious and really wanted to get ahead. And I couldn't give her enough to do. And I'm like, you've been here for a year and you're like looking to get promoted. And I had to take a step back. I didn't say that to her, but I thought it. And I had to take a step back and think about whether or not what she was asking for was actually legitimate or if I was conditioned with what I had learned in corporate America to tell her like she needs to like hold her horses and like, pay her dues and all of that. And I realized like I don't need to hold back her, like hold her dreams or hold her back from achieving her dreams. If she wants to get promoted, we'll work on what she needs to do to get promoted and I'll help her get there. And she eventually did get promoted, and I'm very proud of her, and I love seeing how she's grown at the company. At the same time, I also decided that I didn't like being a director, so I went back to being an individual contributor because I'm like, I don't need all that stress. I don't need.
Oh, it's hard to be a director. Yes, and
it is hard, and I'm like, I don't need. It's more admin work than it is like the kind of work that I wanted to do that was more like hands-on. So the idea of a lazy girl job kind of resonates with me. I don't really like the term lazy girl job. I understand why she chose it. But I think the idea is really just to, if you need to work to pay for your living expenses and to have some discretionary income, then, have a job that doesn't suck your soul so that you have time for yourself and your interests outside of work. And I think that's totally understandable.
You know what? That's very understandable. And I think you survive in your job longer too, because you can kind of create the job the way you want it. And unfortunately, until you have some boss who steps in and says, no, that's not the way we want it anymore. No, we loved what you did. You were successful, but that's not the way we want it anymore. But like I said, I survived 30 years, and enjoyed. I'm one of the lucky ones. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Oh, there were moments. There were moments. But as long as I could be away from the two bosses, I was fine. I travel throughout the United States and
Yeah.
conferences. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, there's one more video I want to play to close this out.
Can't hear the sound, Keisha.
But if you start working on it now, your career and mental health. Stop caring about your job. Show up and don't slack off, but try to separate your identity and emotions from work as much as possible. That's way easier said than done, but if you start working on it now, your career and mental health will be far better off. It's especially hard if you have ornery or passive-aggressive coworkers. But remember, they're losers who care too much about work. Pretty much every job I actually cared about laid me off or took advantage of my enthusiasm. I don't need to leave a legacy at the company. I don't need to put creative energy into tasks at work. I wouldn't be doing this at all if I wasn't getting paid. Within a year, almost everyone at your job will completely forget you. Go above and beyond if you want, but make sure you're doing it for yourself and your career and not your job and your employer. Find literally any hobby so you don't tie your identity to work. Start watching anime, join a hip-hop dance class, or do what every restless soul in corporate America does and start playing pickleball. Obviously, I still get pissed off at work, but I meditate, exercise, and do my best to not think about projects outside of working hours. After working on this for about a year, I finally got my first meaningful raise and promotion in 10 years of working. Remember, you are not your job. Now go out there and keep it cool. Stop caring about.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the lazy girl job summed up, essentially.
I do too. I do too.
So moving on to our grab bag section. Got a couple of fun things to share. So apparently in DC, DC plastic surgeons see surge in Mar-a-Lago face request. Why anyone would want to look like these Republican, not even Republican, these MAGA women like Kristi Noem and her lot with all of the terrible fillers and horrible plastic surgery, I don't know.
I don't either. It's not a trend. It's like,
it says, since Team Trump 2.0 rolled into town, now we're seeing people who want to look like they had something done.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I thought it was a joke when you first.
I mean, you would think it is. Who would want to look like that on purpose?
I have no idea. It's like a reality show, isn't it? That's the way I see our government right now. I know it. It almost looks like their face might break apart. I mean, it's just so unreal. And especially when these younger, come on. Trump now, he's another story. Maybe he needs some work done, but
he just needs to go away.
Yes, he does. Anyway, that's for real, huh? Oh, well. What can I say? I mean, we all kind of want to get rid of some of the wrinkles, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I won't say that one day I won't have something done, but I don't want to look like Kristi Noem.
No.
And because I love animals, one more video of something really cute.
Oh.
I'll be back shortly. Don't miss me too much. Remember the son of who you are. Be a good boy. Be a good boy and make me proud. I'll be back soon. I might come back with a couple of treats for you if you're a good boy. Deal? Good. See you soon. I'm going to the gym.
I love that so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was sweet. Aw.
Dogs are the best. All right, everybody. That's the end of our show. Maureen, thank you so much for joining me.
I enjoyed. Thank you, Keisha, for inviting me.
I enjoyed our conversation. Jazzy, Andrea, anyone else in the chat that I missed, thank you for joining. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your comments. This is Here's the Thing. I'll be back next week, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. In the meantime, don't forget to watch We the People Unite on Wednesday and Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And please like, subscribe, and comment. Take care, stay curious, and maybe think about having a lazy girl job.
There you go. Yeah, good idea. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye-bye.